So, basically today, this is an outline of key skills for optimal results. Myself and Zoe Black, recent PhD graduate, we've put together kind of a group of workshops that really focus in on some key skills for athletes. And today in particular is going to be heavily based around the foundation of these key skills, which is your organization and your planning. It's a huge component of kind of your psych skills and understanding your performance behaviors. So the real goal of today is to introduce you and develop your understanding of planning and organization in the context of peak performance. So really want to start developing that performance mentality, looking at your organization skills and really looking at it as an opportunity to better understand yourself and your training environment. Look at a few examples as we go, a concept called bullet journaling. And we'll also look at different examples that I've used throughout the years with logbooks, diary entries, to-do lists, these sort of things that really develop your motivation and your accountability. So this workshop I delivered last week to the most senior academy, the National Academy, and I'm basically delivering the same thing. And I want to treat you guys in the same way as the sort of aspiring athletes that you all are. If there's any terminology, I will really spell it out for a lot of it. But again, if there's anything you're unsure of as I go, just let me know in the chat section and we can address that at key points. But really, it's when I say something like your cognitive motivation or your cognitive autonomy, that just means what's going on in your own head. And particularly with the autonomy, that just means encouraging things to be automatic, in particular around your training environment, your racing, that sort of stuff. So I'll be touching on these concepts or terms as we go. And basically the session is going to be about 15, I'll keep it to 15 minutes roughly of information. There'll be a wee breakout room opportunity. And then from there, we'll come back together. I'll address any questions or any open group conversation that anyone wants to have. Go back to kind of sum things up and give you all a little bit of information about what's going on in the background in different workshops. And then again, an opportunity for a bit of Q&A and just wrap up the session. So I'm going to keep it short and sharp, no real longer than 40, 45 minutes. Don't want to be talking at you for a long length of time. This is kind of that session structure that I was talking about. So I've got key skills here, then I develop these performance skills further, and then I look specifically at your peak performance behaviors. So this is aspects building up to major meets, kind of crucially around that build up to a short course season. This stuff, obviously you guys might not have access to all of this in live sessions like this. However, the recordings are going to be made available from what I've been told from Alan. So, this is an insight into what's going on. Zoe's looking a lot around the kind of key skills for the more psych or coping based stuff like your nerves. You have to really tap into like your visualization and imagery type stuff, which means really breaking down how you prep before a race or how you can make yourself more prepared for racing. Basically this structure, if I was in a position that you guys are now, way back a long time ago, seems like a long time ago now, I would have loved to have access to this sort of stuff. And I can't stress enough how much you can benefit from this if you buy into it. And it's just a great opportunity for y'all to really get more skills and develop more as athletes and people, especially. This is, without getting too nitty gritty, basically these are your excellence behaviors. This is the real basis of what myself and Zoe have been developing. Today we're looking at that planning and organization. But all of this kind of is encapsulated in your characteristics of developing excellence as a young person, as a young athlete. And there's lots of evidence out there just to support this sort of structure being implemented in football academies and tennis academies at very young ages, golfers. And myself, Zoe, Alan, we thought, why not really be trying to tap into this at an earlier stage for swimmers as well? There's such huge stresses both in the pool, out of the pool. All of this stuff can really help develop your critical thinking and your goal setting and just generally being more able towards your performance as athletes. This is a question I'll pose at the start, and I'll also touch on it at the end. It's, what does excellence look like? So if you're thinking about your excellence behaviors or the way you conduct yourself to perform at a high level, there's a nice quote at the bottom there. Vince Lombardi's an NFL coach from America, but it holds true in any high performance context. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can achieve excellence. In a sport like swimming with such high technical ceilings, whether it's your stroke, your skill acquisition around the walls, the turns, the starts, even if you look at the very top level, the top guys still make mistakes on a regular basis. So you really need to get into your head that it's not about being perfect. It's about chasing that level of excellence and being your best self. And it's how you really understand that concept that will be key today and as we move forward throughout this session and beyond. Before we get into more details of the planning and aspects, this is kind of a breakdown of what your week looks like. The very basic, and I just sat down and thought, well, how often do we sleep? What are the training hours, academic, and that's school, college, and maybe you guys will be aspiring for college or university, but you'll all be within that school aspect now with your national fives or hires coming up, or different levels, of course, depending on your age, but it's good to be aware of it now and as you go through. And for me in particular, it's this 35%. If you look at a generous breakdown of, your sleep and your training, and other aspects, what are you doing with this other 35%? What can you be doing to improve? And even within all these core areas, how can you become more organized and able and have a better understanding of what you're doing? And I'm going to give you insight into what I've done over the years that I think that's worked really well and will continue to use even now. And I guess I should say, for those that don't know, I've actually just retired from swimming very recently, a couple of weeks ago, competitively, and really leaning into this stuff a lot more. So I would like to think that what I've developed over the years is somewhat usable for the next generation. And that's going to be the biggest aspect of this, is just rubbing off on you guys in the right way and showing you what you can do to get better. Just briefly, these are some of the barriers that really do inhibit your optimal performance. If you're looking at your transitions through school, your living environments, relationships with friends, your family, whether you're going into different years in school, different classes, and then again, potentially university or college, there's always going to be a clash with exams, your training schedules, your competitive schedules, build-ups to big meets. All these things are a huge aspect of your lives and will continue to be. And for me, thinking back to that excellence, it's how do you juggle these challenges? How do you keep all those plates spinning? It's really thinking, how can you prioritize one thing over the other? It doesn't always work like that. If you're a student athlete and athlete student, there's different stages in your developing life where you'll have to prioritize different things, but it's not right to say you'll just stop one altogether. It's how you can get the best out of your situation and keep things up at a high level, performing at a high level, both academically and in swimming. And they come hand in hand. Like I said, this is really the foundations of developing that performance mentality, of how organized you are, how switched on you are. It's really about developing an approach that keeps you grounded. And by that, I mean calm, level-headed, understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it. There's lots of different ways to do it. I mean, I've leaned into to-do lists for a long, long time, which is just literally writing on a scrap piece of paper, what do I need to do this week? What have I got coming up this month? You can look at diaries, logbooks, which I'll touch on quite heavily as well. I'll give you some examples of my own logbook from about 10 years ago, which I think is great to look back on. Planners as a whole, you can even look at Excel sheets and Word documents. And again, for you guys, you might be thinking, oh, I don't even know what that is. But if you even introduce yourself to these systems or programs or ways of developing your understanding of organization and planning, it'll hold you in good stead further down the line, because it's all transferable skills. Looking at, as you go through school, you'll use Word documents, you'll use Excel, especially as you get older. These things, PowerPoint presentation stuff, it just becomes important to understand what it all means. And all of it, again, relates back to that motivation and the routine and the accountability that you can hold yourself to if you're more organized and you write stuff down and you have an understanding of why you're training in the certain way you are, and you have information to look back on, either in a diary or a logbook. And really from here, I want to look at, oh, sorry, my laptop's frozen a little bit. Sorry, can someone tell me what slide I'm on still?
You're on the planning and organisation, so foundations of the performance mentality.
Oh, there we go.
That's it moved, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that. The laptop froze a little bit. So this then takes on, thinking about that planning and organisation, I wanted to just briefly touch on a bullet journal. So again, if this information will be shared and you can go back on it, and there's videos linked into this that really explain what it all means. But basically it's an all-in-one of a planner, to-do list and diary. It's an opportunity to really develop self-reflection, a critical awareness, whether you're tracking what sessions you've done, giving a little thought to how you felt during the session, rate your session, and also tracks out your week. And again, just having an understanding of this earlier, I think will put you in such a good position. I started using to-do lists around S3, S4, so I don't know, 13 through to 15, I really started to get a grip with this stuff, particularly to-do lists and logbooks. Actually, I was really on top of that, and I think put me in a great position moving forward into both my academics and my swimming, because I had this relationship with my coach to be able to look back at aspects of my diary or a logbook, and again, they can see why I've done something or why they've done something, what works and what doesn't. And it evolves, and I'll look at, or it'll demonstrate ways that it can be really minimalist, which is kind of more like me. I'll just look at small aspects of it, or you can be really intricate and aesthetic with it and really just develop it into how you want it to look. So this is a teammate of mine provided an example of how they break down their planner or their bullet journal. And if you look on the left-hand column here, that's kind of a spread of it's a monthly spread. You know, so what's going on at a glance, what am I prioritizing, what's going on in this week? And it's just a really neat way to break down what's important and what's not, and you can prioritize or migrate tasks. This key down the side is literally just what all these symbols mean, but there's no right or wrong way about applying this. And this is a more intricate version of aspects of a to-do list. You can track, so down there is hip mobility, your reading, even skincare, like there's basic stuff like your well-being, your day-to-day. And again, this is a really aesthetic and nice way to put it all together. And it means you just at a glance, you can see what you've got coming up that week or month. You can just spend a bit of time on a Sunday putting this together. It's what I do. But what I do in particular is a lot more Billy Basic, but it works for me. So I literally, in the past, would just get a scrap piece of paper, throw down some ideas or notes, and making sure I know what's going on. Catching up with Dougie, that's my brother. And this is actually last week's diary entry, which I have now. I just have my own little symbols, codes, just really keep on top of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. In particular, like for me, it's important to have these things noted down because, you know, some things might look quite arbitrary, like meter readings. I mean, that's literally to do with gas and electricity. But for me, it's important to know and stay on top of these things. And even when it's more related to swimming, I really need to know what big meets are coming up. And really the importance around it. And again, like I touched on, I'll give you some examples from my logbook later on. But just to sum up the bullet journal stuff, both of these have links embedded to kind of explain the bullet journal, staying organized, planning. And again, this is just a really great starting point, I think, for a lot of you, if you want to invest in yourself or invest in a kind of a performance developing book of such. This is definitely a great place to go. Amazon, you know, they have deals on all the time. Or you can just go into a video aspect and just touch on a little bit of what you need from each part of it. But again, if you take away anything from this, it's just start small and work your way up. And you can really develop it as you go. You can be as minimalist or intricate as you like. So looking at different approaches, there's no reason why you can't sub out a diary for a logbook crossover. or maybe only some aspects cross into different areas, like a diary is a really great opportunity to self-reflect, just writing down a couple of lines in the evening, how your day's gone. I did an altitude camp in Sierra Nevada, which is in Spain in 2019, and I was sharing a room by myself. Well, I wasn't sharing with anyone just because of the numbers. And I actually found diaries really useful. It was 15, 20 minutes before I went down to have food in the hall with the team, and I would just take a bit of time to self-reflect. And I thought it was a great way to just stay calm and stay level-headed with the day's proceedings and the training coming up. And I enjoy looking back on all this stuff even now. And this is the logbook stuff that I was talking about. So if you look at the date up there, these are 2011. I still have these logbooks, and I kept them religiously from about 2009 to 12, 13 M&B. So this age range for me is around 13 through to 17, 18 is when I was doing this heavily. I continued it in different ways as I got older, but for me, even back then, I kind of forgot I did this. You know, I gave a little rating scale, 9 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, and I gave a little thought into what I thought went well, what didn't. And if you look in the good session, it's saying, great set, felt good, put in a solid effort. Well, fair enough. Maybe that's to do with the volume. And then looking a bit more at what went wrong, or why I rated 4 out of 10. I'd raced in Inverness, and I can only apologise for my handwriting. It's not great. Felt sore, felt down from certain races, just got through it. You know, this is a great tool to look back on. And I remember having a really solid relationship with my coach back in 2012 and before, a guy called Craig Houston, who was a previous Scottish record holder in the 50 freestyle at the time. And we would quite often go back in the logbook and look and see what worked. And, oh, that was a really great block of training we did. And again, I was young at this point, and but I was really into this just because it gave me more control for myself as a young person, a young athlete, to really apply what I was doing in the pool. And yeah, it just gave me a great insight into what I was doing and how I felt when I was doing it. And this is an example of what I do now, or more recently, just because, again, my handwriting's so bad, it's just a digital option. And again, this might look big and overwhelming, but this is quite simply just a table in Word that you can create, color code some stuff. And for me, of course, I'm not going to stick to this stuff rigidly, but this was the period of when I would swim, when I had my pre-pool, my gym sessions, and then I would block out sections of, right, this is uni, and this is when I'm going to study and do stuff. And it's, again, that accountability of keeping myself to a routine, a rough schedule, and knowing where my windows of recovery are. What am I doing this week? Okay, I'm going to do a yoga session, right? Let's stick to it. Am I going to read before bed? Yes, because staying up on my phone for hours keeps me up. It's these little things that link to your performance behaviors. And these are things we'll touch on in the next couple of sessions, and you guys will have access to either live like this or through a recording. But really, it's an opportunity to just lay out your week. And I would just print this and put it on my wall. And this would keep me going for the real heaviest months of my training cycles with uni alongside it. And this is just an adapted version of how you can, you know, chuck in volume down the bottoms, and you have a track of what you're doing on a daily basis in the pool. I hope you can see that, and it's not cut off. But in this week, it was just shy of 40K. It was 8.7 on the heaviest, or 9K in the heaviest days across 2 sessions. And then it really gives you a good idea of, again, tracking what the weekly volume has looked like, and then a bit of to-do list or notes along the side. And again, it's just expanding my understanding of my routine and what's working and what's not. All that being said, what is the best approach for you? The best approach is what works best for you. It can be the most minimalist, simple thing, writing stuff out on a scrap piece of paper, using your phone calendar. There's apps now that can kind of remind you if you put stuff in. Obviously, your planner can remind you, but apps as well, from a to-do list point of view, will actually notify and keep you on track. You can record your goals, all these sort of things, and maybe just think about a wee rating system. Even if it's one place to start, kind of a logbook / to-do list would be a great place, and then you can really expand it from there. And again, maybe look at bullet journaling, or maybe you prefer the digital aspect with Word or Excel. Again, play around with these things and see what works. Make your own pie chart and think, you know, it's really easy to do online. It demonstrates how to break down your week, and it gives you a great representation of where you're putting your time. And again, using that cognitive autonomy, it makes you more automatic. The less stuff you have in your head that you need to try and stay on top of, whether it's school or work, the more you can apply yourself in the water, getting better as an athlete. And it encourages that communication with the coach, which is really key throughout this whole process. Is how can you have a two-way relationship, even when you're younger? Like I said, when a great relationship with my first coach when I was 12, and was more distance swimmer based, and then moved to kind of 14 through to 18 with more sprint based before Edinburgh. I always remember thinking I have a great relationship with my coach, and we have stuff to talk about. And these planners and logbooks are a great place to start. So at this point, first of all, if anyone has any questions on what we've talked about so far before we go into breakout rooms, either private message me or open them up in the group. But basically, I just want to spend 5 minutes in a breakout room thinking, why do you think it's important to be organised? How can organisation and planning optimise your performance? So what aspects have we talked about do you think you could apply to your situation? And what resonates with you here? Is this something I don't think this is important at all, or I understand this is why this is important. You know, some people might have a more minimalist approach like me, or really intricate and kind of use it as a form of release and get quite artistic with it, or, you know, use it as an opportunity to practice using Word documents, for example. Again, the key here is opportunity to your own performance and your own benefit. And really it's how much you put into something like this is how much you get out of it. And you can be as overarching as you want or in depth as. So at this point, I think I'll stop sharing the screen. Ask those, if anyone has any questions, you can fire them in the chat or ask openly. And if not, we can just engage the breakout rooms.
Okay, Jack, I've just made a quick note there so I can post into the rooms as we create the breakouts. So question 1 was, why is planning important? How can you do it? Just from what you've spoke about, is there anything the swimmers feel will work for them, or have they got any ideas of their own? Is that about the...
Pretty much, yeah. Like what resonates with them, what sits well.
Just so as I can copy and paste it into the chat when I create the rooms.
Yeah.
So Jackie, how many rooms are we thinking? Or Jack, how many people do you think should be in a room?
4 or 5 is quite fine, maybe 4.
4 in a room. So we'll go for, who's quick at math? 12 or 13 rooms then.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Do we need an adult in each room, or are we confident?
That's what I was going to ask you. Do we need an adult in each room? I'm not sure if we have sufficient.
Let the kids do it. I mean, they're all pretty good at chatting, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to create 12 random breakout rooms then, and then if there are any adults in there, I won't say then do. If they don't, then come out. And then I'll pop the questions in each room. Yeah.
Yep, that would be good, Fiona. Thanks.
Okay, I'll just create them now.
So guys, you will see an invitation come up on your screen, inviting you to a breakout room, and just accept that.
Okay, I'm just going to hit open the rooms now, okay?
Cool.
So there's a few here. Callum, have you not received an invitation? Oh, there we go.
And Freya, Ross. And Ross.
I'm a coach. I just kind of like don't know what to do.
Oh, you said, yeah. No, that's fine. You look very young. Freya?
Still swim, but a coach.
Freya maybe is a coach as well.
I've asked to unmute, but I'm not sure.
Or maybe they've disappeared. That's the thing with a blank screen, you can hide. I'm going to quickly nip the toilet.
Where are you coaching, Ross?
Hamilton. Yeah. I was just there this morning actually. I was in 10 minutes and then I was on this call.
I'm hoping Freya's a coach. I'm not sure.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we should have maybe had for people to put. Oh, yeah, hold on, I did broadcast. Right. I put out a broadcast, but you guys wouldn't have seen that, would you?
Sure.
So the breakout rooms, I'll broadcast message to all.
Yeah, I can see that in here.
Yeah.
Let's just go to everyone. Hopefully. I actually did the DRP last year. I was one of the coaches on it.
I'll join one of the rooms. Thank you, they have come up there. All right, that's fine. I'm not used to Zoom at all. I use Teams at work, so.
I know what the stress is like because we were doing it on Zoom last year as well, and we had to deliver presentations on it, and it was mind-boggling the stuff. I don't know how to use Zoom either because I just left uni, so I never had a chance to use Zoom in that sort of frame of mind, so I don't know how to work it.
I think most of the kids should have access to Teams. I definitely think, but then a lot of people probably aren't used to Teams, so we're not allowed to use Zoom at our work.
No.
And you put them in the chat. I did.
About 2 minutes to the toilet.
How are we doing time-wise, Fiona?
Sorry, I just realised I was on mute. I'm thinking that we started about 10:42 as when I posted the questions into the group. So I've popped a message to ask how everyone's getting on, but I'm not sure if they're seeing the messages when they're in the breakout rooms.
They should do. They should do.
I thought they were. I was putting out broadcasts for the messages, but Jackie sent me a WhatsApp to ask me to she said she couldn't see them. So I put them in the group chat, but I think it just depends what devices people are using, what they can see and what they can't.
Yeah.
So should I put a warning out to say we're going to close the breakout rooms in 2 minutes?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then when you actually go to close breakout rooms, they get a 1 minute warning.
Yeah. So 2 minute warning, then I close should I just say 1 minute warning? That's probably actually quite a long time for them if there's only 4 of them in a room at that age. Okay, so that's a broadcast now. So at 10:51, I'll hit close rooms.
Yes, exactly. And then it'll, and they can always just bring themselves back early anyway if they're done talking to each other. And then Jack can ask them what they've thought. Yeah, some of them will be great at chatting away and then others won't say anything. It's so painful when that happens.
I know, but I didn't know how many adults were going to be in the call, and if I'd known, then could have tried to set up the breakout rooms in the background with an adult in each group. But
yeah, it just takes a long time. Yeah, it just takes a long time to do that. So yeah, hopefully some of the older swimmers will be able to serve.
Yeah. Right, I'm just going to hit close now.
Yeah,
because that's been a minute. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And some of them will ping back straight away. There you go. Hi guys. I hope you've all chosen people to speak from each group. Corey's eyes popping out his head. Because you might be asked for a wee bit of feedback.
I mean, you can talk out loud if you want, or like I said, you can just direct message me or like type it in the group chat. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Just to share your thoughts on what your group's been talking about. If there's anything you think was of interest or importance to you, just feel free to share it. You know, just around those questions of, you know, what's important and why is planning an organisation important? How do you see it optimising your performance, and what hits home the most with you guys? What resonates the most in terms of what we touched on? Is it one aspect? Is it all of it? I guess I'll just open up the room. Anyone can share if they're brave enough, or fire me a message.
Come on, guys. Some of you must be brave enough.
We didn't really speak that much in our room, but we all sort of had the problem of making reminders and then just forgetting about them. So I sort of suggested that if you left them in a physical place where you'll always see them, so like the table where you eat or stuck on your bedroom door, then you'd see them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. That's, you know, if you're just printing something out, whether you do it on your laptop or you write it out and stick it on your wall, well, it's a goal. That's a great thing to do. Or even if you want to be a bit more on it with your phone, you can set yourself reminders, or like I said, there's apps out there for planning an organisation. At the end of the day, there's no point in taking on too much if you can't make it sustainable. There's no right or wrong way. It's doing what works best for you. Anyone else get anything? Any thoughts?
I love the checklist planner and things, activity checklists and stuff you get on phone. I love a checklist, especially when you can tick it off or score it through. I love your spreadsheets.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, like, I get a lot of gratification, like crossing something off. That's why even if I scribble down a messy to-do list, there's a nice feeling about just,
I know.
That's it, done. Which again, if it's the little things throughout a week make a big difference.
Yeah.
And whether it's your homework or a task or a report or an assignment or a competition coming up, and even if it's writing down a goal, like, oh, I want to do this time at this competition. You know, I'm not a big one on outcome goals. I'd much rather be focused on, you know, how can I improve my technique in the dive and whatnot. But even if you achieve these big goals, just scratching it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes just the physical act of writing it down or typing it in helps you remember. Well, it does with me.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I can sort of remember myself writing it down.
So a great point made about planning can cause less stress that I got through. I mean, I'm going to touch on that after this, but there's a huge connection between planning and organisation and stress, both peaks and troughs. If you're really unorganised, you don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it, stress levels can really go up, especially as things get busier and life gets busier. If you can literally just write stuff down or have it in front of you and know what your week or month looks like, it's just fact that your stress will be lower. You know, that's what I mean by that autonomy. You've got less stuff flying around in your head, and you can just think about what matters.
And there's a statement on the group chat saying every day make a couple of goals for yourself that you want to achieve, like stuff in the pool and at school, from Isla, which is a good idea because it'll make you feel good if you achieve stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like, even if you sit there on a Sunday evening, which is quite often do, I'll look through my diary and my week and think, right, what do I need to do this week? What have I got coming up? And then even if it's setting aside, making it day by day goals, that's a great point, and it keeps you accountable to that. So then if you've got something that's due in like November or December, it's too far down the line, whereas you think on a Sunday, what do I want to achieve tomorrow? I want to do a length underwater without breathing. I want to do a 50 underwater without breathing. That's maybe a week-based achievable goal. Or I want to make an effort to improve my hand position on freestyle or breath. Like these are little goals that you can set yourself, and that's where the evolution or the flexibility comes in with all of this. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. But anything else at this stage? Maybe anything? No?
You're all being shy.
No, that's all right. Well, if we've got nothing else so far, probably crack on with just the last couple slides summing up, and then connecting all the dots, and then from there we'll just again have a bit of an open Q&A for anything left and wrap up the session, I think. So share. Can we see that? Is that all good?
Yeah, can see that.
Right. So all of this being said, the most important aspect is to really keep it simple when you first start doing this sort of stuff. You know, don't bite off more than you can chew initially, like jump straight into a bullet journal and go full head in. I mean, you can if you want, but it can be a bit overwhelming. So just take it in baby steps, even if it is a bullet journal or a planner or a diary. Start in pencil, maybe have a rough idea of what you want it to look like. And even if it's a Word document or an Excel, a table, play around with color coding and what colors you enjoy, what stands out for you. And then once you get a bit more of an understanding of it, that's when you can really start to apply it, and it'll improve. It constantly improves. And even now, some of these skills I've been using for a long time evolve. And that accountability and that motivation is such a huge thing. Like routine, we're creatures of habit, we're swimmers, we're all at school, we've been through school. Like these things make a big difference in our day to day. And that accountability, whether it's setting yourself daily goals or weekly reminders, whether it's technical based stuff in the pool, whether it's homework based stuff at school, it's all these things make a big difference. And it's doing stuff a little and often that make the big changes. And it really gets you thinking about these excellence behaviors. It's how do I conduct myself in the best way I can to be the best version of myself and get the most out of my performance, whether it's that session that evening or a big session later in the week. You might be doing a circuit with the team, and that might be a big goal for you to do well there. You know, all these things make a difference in the grand scheme. It might not seem like a big deal looking at them day by day, but again, if you can consistently apply yourself in this way, it adds up, you know, holds you in a really great position down the line. And stress came through in one of those questions, and it's such a great point. Like the potential stress that we're talking about, psychological skills. It's not always, you know, methods to like stuff inside your head. Some of it is tangible, like you're writing stuff down, or you're typing, or you're making actions, or you're being more physical with it. And stress reduction is a huge aspect of that continuous pursuit of performance, that performance betterment. The more you can really stay grounded with what you're doing, the better your result will be. It's just fact, you know, whether it's on a daily training basis or on that short course cycle at the end of the meet. If you can put all these, if you can join the dots at the start and let it build, then it'll put you in a great position. And that point I really wanted to hit home. It encourages that autonomy, that cognitive autonomy. Instead of lying in bed at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock and thinking, God, I've got this to do, that to do. If you've written it down, or you have an understanding of your goals or your weekly spread or your monthly outlook, you don't need to be thinking about that, because you know it's on your Word document, it's in your planner, it's there, you have it. And it really does make you think critically. Excuse me. You know, if you're writing down on a logbook why the session felt the way it did, or rating it, then you can look back at the end of the week and think, I felt really good during that Wednesday session. Why? Why did I feel good? It's not just simply about writing down the numbers of this is the weight I lifted, or this is the length I ran, this is the distance I swam, and this is the breakdown of the set. That's great to look at, but your coach probably has that too. What really matters is, you know, the why to the what. It's really expanding the meaning behind why did I give that session a rating of a 6.5 or a 7 or a 2, and learning from that and saying to your coach, you know, the last 2 weeks, like my sessions have really been going down and I don't understand why. Like the day today, I've not been feeling great and I don't understand. And you can say, oh, well, why don't we look back at your logbook or your planner? Like, where have you been busy? Well, that planner might say you've been really busy through this period, and you can pinpoint that and have a better understanding as an athlete as to why it's gone wrong or where you can maybe improve. And all that being said, if bullet journals or planners, it might not be for you, but if there's one thing to take away, it's really engage as much or as little as suits you. Just try to be a bit more organized, even if you take one aspect of what we've talked about. And I know a lot of you already do aspects of this. You'll do logbooks. Maybe you don't have a rating system. Maybe you don't write stuff down about how you're feeling. Try it. You know, write it in a different pen color, because then if you're flicking through your book, you might write your session out in black ink or blue. Then maybe if it's a positive comment, write it in green. Write it in red if it's negative. Like simple stuff that you can just flick through, glance at, and have a good understanding of what it means and why. Play around with symbols. Maybe a triangle means something for you, a square, a star. All these things can have different meanings. And again, it's just giving you something to look back on, and that level of accountability as an athlete. And again, I would really encourage you to just look at your week like a pie chart or in a bar graph or something. It's so simple and easy to do these things now on Word or Excel, and then it gives you a great visual of your week, like where you're assigning your time. You can break this down further. What does your 35 look like? Are you doing another sport, maybe you're trying to learn a language, maybe you're wanting to apply a little bit of reading time. Like, there could be all sorts of stuff, or maybe you're just trying to have a better understanding of how your week looks and why it looks that way. And then you can play around with, okay, well, I need to assign a wee bit of time towards being organized. Where can I break that down? So for me, those are the biggest points that I wanted to really hit home with what we've talked about. And from here, again, aspects of this that you guys will get access to, I'll be pushing that you'll, at least get an access to the recording of all this stuff. This really lays the foundation of what's to come. For me, I'll be expanding on this in the next slide about different sorts of performance lifestyle behaviors. And Zoe in her sessions, she's doing one this evening to the Senior Academy, and I think she's done one with you guys already. She'll be continue to doing stuff that she'll be following up on from the senior-based sessions, and it all connects. You'll see how planning an organization and diaries and to-do lists, how it actually connects to understanding nerves, your mindset, your performance behaviors. Really, it's just developing that critical awareness of yourself. Why is my heart rate accelerated at the moment? Why is my breathing changed? That all of it, really, you can connect the dots. And as basic as it sounds, it starts with just being more organized, just having an understanding of your week. And then from there, you get a better understanding of yourself. So for me, what's to come, different aspects of this all connect, and we're looking at kind of pre-bedtime behaviors. There's aspects of social media. This progressive muscular relaxation is a skill that is both stress reducing and sleep inducing. You can use it in different ways. Zoe will be building on it as well. Communication skills and transitions in particular through school, through different teams, through different aspects of your life. This is really what we'll be developing on. And self-regulation is a point of just being more critical of yourself. Self-regulation meaning, again, how can you look back on a week or a month and understand why you felt how you felt? And again, if you don't have the information available, it's quite a tricky thing. It's a needle in a haystack type scenario. But we'll really be trying to spell out how to make just a more understandable approach to your week and your month. And then again, for me, these are the last two sessions I'll be looking at. And again, I'll either be touching on this within the DRP, most likely in one of the sessions, or giving you access to the actual recording itself. And again, you'll see how there's connections here, like the bullet journals, the checklists, how to stay motivated and how to simulate your task in the run up to a big meet. Again, in order to think critically about how to visualize a performance, you really need to have a good understanding of how to think critically about yourself. I know Adam Pete, for example, task simulation is a huge aspect of his training process. They'll try and mimic the race scenario dozens, if not hundreds of times before the event itself. There's so many athletes that talk about self-talk, instructional self-talk, and your race day behaviors and your routines day to day, and how it all connects. And that's really what we'll be laying the foundations for. And again, it all starts with this. If you can't think critically about your training week or session by session, then it'll be a lot harder to try and simulate internally in your head or actually in the pool trying to better a performance. And that's how all these dots really connect. And one of the last things that we touched on at the start that I want to really finish on is, what does excellence look like? Perfection is not attainable, but you can chase excellence. And it's how do you go about juggling those day-to-day processes of sleep, your work balance, your training, and the other. How do you keep all these plates spinning? And for me, it really is a fundamental. I can't stress how important to-do lists and planners. It is so basic, and it can be boring at times, but there can be such a satisfaction in crossing stuff off, or just having an understanding of your week or what you're doing and why. And it really starts with this, because at no point throughout your swimming or academic or lives will you probably be able to just look at one thing. Like, it's very rare. There's likely going to be other stuff going on at the same time, and it's how you manage that and how you really keep the plate spinning of what is a very hectic life of a swimmer, particularly as you get older. So that kind of sums up everything that I wanted to talk about. and it kind of lays the foundations for what's to come. And hopefully it'll get you guys thinking a bit more critically about yourselves and maybe get you a wee bit excited about some of the workshops that are on the horizon. Probably pause there and open up. I know I've kind of sped through a couple of the sessions that are to come, and you could maybe ask questions around that or what I've talked about there. Anything at all at this stage for the last sort of 5 minutes.
There's not any questions in the main chat. I don't know if you've got any questions been sent to you yourself, Jack. Or...
let me just have a quick check.
Yeah, I was just going to say to everybody, if you're confident enough to unmute yourself and just ask, then do that. If not, use the chat function, and we'll keep an eye on the chat function.
It really is a life skill that you're talking about as well, Jack. You know, it's not, as you said, it's not just to do with swimming or school. It's to do with the rest of your life. I know I rely completely on making sure I have lists everywhere, and I don't use a bullet journal, but I do have my phone, and I do use scraps of paper everywhere. And for me, it's really important, you know, it makes me focus a little bit more when I have it written down. So it is something that's very important going on in life.
It's hugely important. I just had a direct message come through asking, how did I find out about bullet journals? So my teammates, quite a few of them actually use bullet journals. And I'm not going to name names, but probably the more successful ones among the team, looking at just performances and teams they've made. As well as even academically within my lectures, they talk about how there's a real crossover there. There's an opportunity to blend or evolve your approach. There's another question someone's asking about kind of journals or diaries and sleeping. So obviously sleep behaviors is that next session that we're looking at, and that's a great point actually to connect. It keeps you kind of grounded. If you can set aside a bit of time to just write a few thoughts in the day or even read a little bit, it starts to kind of wind you down. I mean, it's a big part for me about sleeping. If I'm stressed or thinking...
Oops, I think you've muted yourself.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Don't know how much I was cut out there, but I was basically saying...
if you're stressed and you were just...
Yeah, well, if again, like someone asking about journals before bedtime, if you're stressed about stuff and you need to write stuff down before bed, it can help with your sleep and it keeps you more grounded. It reduces that stress. And the same can be said about nerves and anxiety. Someone's asked, does this stuff help with nerves? And totally, it does help with nerves and anxiety, that sort of thing. If you can write down maybe why you're worried or why you're feeling something. I mentioned that I did diaries in Sierra Nevada. So that's a mountain up Spain. That basically you're in the middle of nowhere and there's not a lot to do, and you really, if you're sharing a room by yourself, which I was, you're kind of in your own head a little bit. And I was thinking about, you know, stress inducing stuff, and actually writing it down in a diary just makes such a huge difference. I actually felt it really leveled me out and meant I got more sleep, better sleep, and felt less nervous or anxious, because nerves for me has always been a big thing as a swimmer, and just how I managed it.
Jack, can I just add to that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that I think if you find it difficult to speak to someone as well, if you've got fears and anxieties about things, actually writing them down sometimes makes you feel like you've actually told someone, because you've actually got it kind of out your system, and you've actually written it down, and then sometimes it then makes it easier to talk to someone about it. So if that's something that, you know, any of the athletes are, you know, worried or anxious, you know, actually just writing them down really does just help kind of, as you say, release it from your system, and then it makes it easier to talk to someone else about them. But in your situation, obviously you were by yourself, so actually writing them down is a kind of means of kind of letting someone else know, whether it's a bit of paper or an actual person, you're actually, you know, releasing that from your system. So that definitely helps.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I really meant about the autonomy stuff. Just less stuff, useless stuff flying around in your head that makes you stressed. But another question coming about, when you were doing competitive swimming, did you find that keeping a bullet journal helped you? Yes, you know, I've done, as you've seen from that, I've done all aspects of a bullet journal. I didn't actually bring it all together in one place because unfortunately I just didn't know about them, but I do now. And I know that teammates that have massively adopted them because of that. Like I've used diaries, I've used planners, I've used to-do lists, I've used logbooks, and they all are tools for your performance improvement. You know, they all serve different purposes. And for me, the biggest ones were it kept me motivated and accountable to what I was doing. It really kept me grounded in terms of the purpose of my training, like what am I really striving for in the pool or out of the pool, and it kept my anxieties or stress levels reduced. And that's such a huge aspect of your day-to-day life. Like if you can keep yourself grounded and keep a better outlook on just the week or the month as a whole when things got overwhelming, again, you'll just be better for it in the long run. So I thought they were a huge part of my competitive career and academically. I'd say 100% I wouldn't have achieved what I did, both in the pool or at school or at university, without being organised and using these tools. And again, that's why I'm saying it to you guys in the way I am, that I just cannot stress enough how important this stuff is for now and just for the rest of your life. And I don't know, that really does sum it up.
I think as well, it like one thing doesn't work for everyone. Like you'll find different ways. Like maybe people, it'll be pen and paper and writing old school lists. Maybe you'll use Microsoft To Do or a fancy app or a spreadsheet or PowerPoint or whatever. You've got to just find what works for you visually and things as well. You might be into colours and things, or that might not work for you. But it's just finding a system that works, because one size won't fit everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And for another question come in, have you changed the methods you use? Yes, 100%. Kind of as Fiona said there, I've definitely adapted because I've realised I don't really like the way my writing looks if it's an important thing, so I'll have to type it out, or I'll make it into a big visual spreadsheet or a Word document with color coding, and it's nice, and it just sits better with me. It's a nice thing to look at and wake up to. And you know, if you're waking up in the morning, you're a bit sleepy and you're not really wanting to read anything, if there's just a color coding and you can understand what the colors mean to you, that's another thing that can really kind of keep you ticking along. Actually, towards the end of my career, I started using cue cards. So that's an aspect that we'll touch on in some of the sessions to come. Is I literally just made a point of writing down things on a piece of card and laminating it and having them in my bag. And it's that checklist of, you know, what am I doing at poolside? What have I got done? When am I warming up? What am I eating? When am I eating? If I'm having a wee bit of coffee, a bit of caffeine or something, when am I getting my suit on? All of this, again, it's linked to, that's a list, that's a to-do list. You know, but you're up poolside or in the run up to a big meet and you're having to check things off. And it made me more grounded instead of panicking and not realizing, oh, when do I need to get my suit on, or when do I need to warm up? I just look at my cue card, oh, there it is, cool. And that really kept me in a great place. Used it at Commies 2018, or even out in America in 2019 more recently. You know, it was a really useful thing, especially in a foreign environment, an unusual environment where I'm racing against folk I've never seen. It's outdoors, it's all these things that it just keeps you grounded. And again, that's an on-the-day race behavior, but it starts with being able to write a to-do list, you know, and that's how it connects the dots.
I think sorry.
Oh no,
I was just going to say, I think in our little breakout room as well, we talked about how, if we go back to kind of keep a diary of how you feel about how sessions go, or how a competition's gone, you know, how your race has gone, or how a meet has gone in total, it really helps you kind of reflect as well on maybe what happened in the lead up to that. If you've got your planner and then you've got how you feel, you can kind of relate the two together and then maybe start to make some changes that might be necessary. And whether that's, we also talked about, do you also then start keeping, say, like a food diary as well? Because that could all be linked in, that actually, you know, you start kind of connecting the dots and finding out what actually works for you, and seeing any kind of trends, you know, things that are coming up again and again and again. And then maybe you can adapt what you're doing in order to, you know, make that better in the future.
That's a great point. Again, if those that really want to look into the bullet journal stuff, there's a thing called a tracker. where you can track your nutrition, your calories, your different aspects of your week, and it really does connect why you might be feeling in a certain way, because especially as you guys get a bit older, you understand a bit more about what tapering means. So you're basically focusing in on a meat, and you're changing your training, and it might change your nutrition and whatnot. And like you've said there, it's a great way to kind of look back and understand what went well. Like, you might think the build up to a meet or competition's brilliant, and then the day comes and you don't get the result you want, and you're like, why I haven't got the result? And if you can have something to look back on, it really can help you improve. And that's really the main take home from all of this. If I'm looking back at a logbook from 10 years ago, or even more recently, a week ago, it gives me something to look back on and understand why I felt how I did, or why I performed the way I did. And other than that, I think if we're drying out some questions, we're maybe coming to the end of the session.
Yeah, I think everything that you've said, Jack, is just like, it's so worthwhile information for these young athletes to have. And I really hope that everybody has taken something away from today, and that, a few of you will actually, who maybe aren't already doing a diary or, doing a planner, aren't having these kind of regular enough chats with your coach about how things have gone, really start to do that. And whether it's something you do for a few weeks or a few months, and then, as you say, Jack, you've tried various different methods. So what you initially pick might not work for you, but that doesn't mean to say that it won't work long term. Is to try another method, start by keeping a journal. If that doesn't work, try something electronic, try something color coded, try different methods till you find something that works for you. But I really would hope that, the majority of you, if not all of you, will take this on board and try something. That you'll never know if it works if you never try it. So the main thing is to try and see what works for you. So I really thank you very much, Jack. I think everything that you've talked about today is hugely worthwhile for these athletes that we have on the call today.
No worries. And just to kind of finish on that, if you feel anxious or nervous about putting yourself out there a little bit, and maybe approaching your coach or having other teammates thinking, oh, they're doing a diary or they're doing this, lead by example. Take it as an opportunity, as ownership. Show that you're the professional, show that you're the one that wants it the most, and lead by example. And I bet they'd start to do it as well. And if they don't, it's their loss. So don't let that stuff hold you back from having these conversations on poolside with your coach or with your teammates or with your friends. You don't need to divulge any information you don't want to. That can be your private information, especially a diary. But what you do choose to share with your coach, do it with pride, do it with purpose. And I can guarantee that they'll be impressed by it, and they'll feed into it, and I think you'll get results from it.